Hi, thank you for looking at my presentation today. My trend or issue that I'd like to focus on in this brief is social learning. I'm particularly fascinated by this idea because it is much talked about, but it has been very difficult to implement in my current practice. Both Daba and Kitsantas 2012 and Brockman 2006 explore the idea that social learning really is anchored in building a community. In many ways, the online environment allows us to accelerate that process by allowing us to build communities of practice that are not really bound by traditional borders like physical space. In order to be a strong community, you have to have a strong purpose. And so that drives members to continually to push each other to contribute and grow. And so members can co-create their environment and their learning experience. But fundamental to community is the idea that it is organic, it is typically informal, and that learning network can be used in itself to ensure that transfer occurs in the learning process. But community stems from a connection to people, right? When you have a common purpose, that is the foundation for building a strong community. Gee, 2008, Resnick, 1987, and Jenkins, 2011, all explore the idea that if you provide an authentic learning experience, I think Jenkins talks more closely about participatory culture, where you members are actively engaged with each other and engaged with the content, you're able to build deeper connection to the content and to each other. So eventually you develop a shared cognitive experience and a shared cognitive perspective that is molded by the social relationships that you have with each other. So again, transfer is increased because of that connection to other learners as you explore the content together. The last fundamental piece of that relates to the idea of collaboration. So Tosato and Bodhi 2011 and Jenkins 2011 both explore the idea that by collaborative or collaboration or teamwork, we're able to build an environment where we can foster creativity and really innovate. So learners become empowered to control their journey, and the learning experience is an active one. David Alston says that social media is not a media. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. And I think sometimes we forget that really when we talk about using any form of social media, we it really is the content is second to the relationship, so to speak. We've tried to apply the idea of social learning in my practice, not with a lot of success. Higher education is a very formal system, and social education is informal and in many ways unstructured. So, how do you build community in one semester or even a year, depending on the level of interaction that you're talking about? Though we've tried to formalize relationships, most schools have Facebook pages, LinkedIn pages, Instagram pages, all of those pieces, and you do build a fan following. Fans are like collections of baseball cards. I think someone talked about that. I can't remember when. But the idea that people are not ignited with a common purpose like you would in a community of practice where they're constantly learning from each other. Instead, it's a looser, less learning focused environment. One of the ways that because social learning or those kinds of communities are essentially supposed to be organic ones. And higher ed is not necessarily organic in its formation, the way that groups are formed. But Bruckman 2006 and Tosato 2011 tell us that with common interests and experiences, learners are more likely to socially engage. So one of the things some of our schools are doing is focusing on a cohort model so that students have similar experiences, similar challenges, and therefore gravitate to each other and learn and naturally connect. And we can see that happening in this program when we're all getting ready for comps and all hunkered down, studying hard, studying with each other, serving as support groups for each other. that helped us work through some of the challenges related to that particular exercise in our programs. So these communities, because students organically form them, they're not as regulated. However, they are a safe space for students to be encouraged and supported during a program and remain connected. I think there's a lot left to learn about the idea of how to use social learning. So many programs have tried and failed to do it effectively, and yet others have formed very organically and grown. So I think over time, what we'll see is the continued growth of those kinds of communities, but they will probably end up reshaping higher education instead of higher education shaping them.